Tonight, life after the breakup, life without the St. Louis Rams. Not so much what went wrong or what we could have done better, but what does it mean going forward? How do we move forward? The Rams didn't just dump us, they've already changed their name to Los Angeles, so we should probably figure out how to move on too. Stay tuned. Stay Tuned brings together local experts, journalists, civic leaders, and regular people to have tough conversations for a stronger St. Louis. Add your voice to our conversation, and you're at the table as we stay on top of current events and go deeper, bringing more light and less heat to the issues that matter. From the 9 network of public media in Grand Center, this is Stay Tuned. 15 to the roll. 45. All right, joining us to start off this conversation is a man who I've seen on the streets several times covering the story, and you've been out there when I haven't seen you countless more times. David Hunt from the Post-Dispatch. I've enjoyed reading your work. I'm looking forward to kind of debrief with you just a little bit. But as we said, this is not so much a post-mortem on what kind of went wrong, but we're looking forward here tonight. So I'll start maybe just a little bit big picture. It's been kind of an interesting week for downtown. Our guest later in the show will argue that it's not necessarily a bad sign, but from the outside looking in, we've had Mike Shannon's is closed, Jay Buck's, Harry's, the Dubliner, a few other restaurants, the Rams. I don't think anyone's suggesting that they left because of the Rams decision, but it looks like things are rough. I think the co-owner of Harry's said downtown is dead. What do you make of kind of what's the news coming out of downtown St. Louis?
I mean, I'll say this. To start with, when we got a hold of that application that Stan Kroenke, owner of the Rams, sent to the NFL to move his team, I think that I think anybody who cares about this area has to kind of take a deep breath when they read that, because there were some problems with the application for sure, but it presented as a whole kind of a reflection of us that's not very comfortable to look at, and about our economy, about our job growth and our population growth, things that we need to struggle with to figure out.
We took exception to it, but that doesn't mean some of it wasn't true.
Yeah, there were a lot of problems with the application. It picked a lot of strange sources for its data. But right, one of my colleagues, Dave Nicholas, I think said it best. You know, it hurt the most because there were elements of truth to it, and these are things we've got to struggle with. And I know that people in the city and the county and in the state are struggling with it, but I think the general public probably could it would be good if everybody understood how serious these issues were.
So let's talk about what is being done to move forward, and maybe we'll start with kind of the obvious question that might be the shortest answer. Do we go out and get another football team? Is there a faction in the city that says we're not giving up, we're going to get football?
Not only do I think there's not a faction in the city that wants to go find a team, but I don't think there's many elsewhere. I mean, I've gotten emails from people who want to see a Canadian Football League team, lots from people who want a Major League Soccer team. I've gotten people who want a basketball team. I've gotten relatively few who are looking for an NFL team again. I really think that most view this as the NFL burning its collective bridge.
So talk about the MLS. We've seen a lot of, there was the video online from the MLS themselves where they were out asking other coaches, including the coach of the team owned by Stan Kroenke, and they, to a person, said St. Louis is where that league should expand.
Yeah, I mean, that's no accident, right? I'm sure Major League Soccer talked to its people about that interview. And I think that Major League Soccer sees an opportunity. Remember, if people get moving quickly on this, they have a lot of support from the Rams leaving. A lot of people, I think, would jump onto this and say, yes, let's get this going. Let's turn this into something positive. I think they could spin it that way, and I think the MLS sees it that way.
It still takes money, though. You're still going to need a stadium, and you're still going to need a team owner.
But vastly less. So an MLS stadium would cost, like a really nice MLS stadium would be $200 million. You know, this stadium, the NFL one, was $1.1 billion. Stan Kroenke's proposal in LA is $2.66 billion. So it's just a scale entirely different. Moreover, to buy an NFL team just off the blocks would be $750 million or more, $1 billion. To buy an MLS team, much less.
Talk about you've written about this other, and people might dispute whether it was Plan B or Plan Co-A.
Right.
But there is another plan, and we're going to talk more about it in the show. But something is still on the drawing boards for that space where the stadium was proposed.
Yeah, and they are recircling to figure out what's changed and how to move forward on that. I talked to Otis Williams, the development director for the city, essentially, and he talked about getting people back together, some who are on the show later on, to talk about exactly these issues. There's a lot of ideas, really neat ideas for the downtown riverfront. There's a lot of people who think that actually an NFL stadium isn't the best use of land on the riverfront, that there are better uses to engage residents and the river. High density housing, if possible, would be one of those ideas.
I said we weren't looking back, but we'll do it for just one question, and that is there was 16 point something million you've written about spent in this unsuccessful effort to keep the Rams.
Right.
What do you make of that? Is there anything that will come of that? Any accountability, or is that just the cost of doing business?
Yeah, no, I think that is actually a forward-looking question, because I think that right now I know that the task force, Governor Nixon's task force, is looking at how to recover those funds. Is that a settlement with the NFL? I think that's possible. Is it a lawsuit? I think that's possible also.
Interesting. The city, the task force, the region going after the NFL to recoup some of that money.
Yeah, I think they're saying, you told us we could get this done. They're not saying it yet. They're not saying anything yet. They're looking at their options now. But I can imagine a time when they would make the argument that, you let us on. You told us this was possible, and by the end, we feel it clearly wasn't. And you can at least help us cover our costs.
David Hunt, St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Stick around, if you will. We're going to join the rest of the table. But first, we want to hear what you had to say in this week's Twitter chat. It seems everyone has an opinion on how to move forward now that the Rams are no longer in St. Louis, and a lot of them went to Twitter to talk about it. St. Louis Social Group hosted their weekly STL chat Monday night about all things post-St. Louis Rams, some of which was about Major League Soccer coming to town. And there was a little conversation about if we should try to get an NFL team back in St. Louis. A lot of the chatter on Twitter was around what to do on the North Riverfront since there won't be a stadium. STL Rainbow says Great Rivers Greenway will be enhancing the riverfront. Small, organic, private redevelopment should follow. There already is some neat stuff on the North Riverfront. Build on that, it'll become even better. Adam Falcon-Heen thinks the area should have large green public parks that can withstand floods and an aquarium, while leaving the bones of old buildings. Adam also wants more restaurants. He went on to suggest the world's largest playground using recycled materials. In our Stay Tuned Shine Big query, Gary wants more business on the North Riverfront and feels we should look toward Boston for inspiration. He says Boston created a new harbor walk with restaurants, etc., along a portion of the harbor that was previously derelict property. Now it has become the innovation district of Boston and the hottest place for businesses to move. GE just announced they're moving their headquarters there. Businesses are moving back into the district from the suburbs. All right, I'll introduce the rest of the table and we'll jump right in. David Hunt for the Post-Dispatch is still here with us. Todd Antoine, Director of Planning for Great Rivers Greenway, and Missy Kelly, the CEO and President of Downtown STL Inc., Tashara Jones, Treasurer, City of St. Louis, Don Rowe, Director of Planning and Urban Design Agency for the City of St. Louis. Thank you all for being here. Tashara, I'll start with you because I think you were sitting in that exact chair on this show when we were talking about the stadium previously. And I think you famously said the city has 99 problems and the stadium is not one of them.
Exactly.
Are you glad that we have moved forward, we're moving forward without the stadium, without the Rams?
Well, I kind of knew that we weren't going to get that stadium proposal approved when Stan Kroenke put money down on land in Los Angeles. That showed where he was going to move the Rams. And this gives us an opportunity to be like a phoenix that rises from the ashes, to be able to start talking about those 99 problems that I mentioned in the last time I was here, to talk about poverty, to talk about infrastructure, education, jobs, our population growth, our regionalism or lack thereof, or our segregation and the issues that were brought to the forefront from the Ferguson report, the Ferguson Commission, or For the Sake of All. Let's get to really work on those problems and be the St. Louis that we know we can be.
This sounds a lot like something that's just posted on stltoday.com from Dan O'Neill, your colleague. He says, go ahead, miss football downtown, but miss your city more, miss what it used to be, how it used to sing, how it used to feel. The Rams' departure is a blow to our civic ego, but it has a chance to be a positive fork in the road. We shouldn't lament the loss. We should learn from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we have a chance to take our existing infrastructure in the Convention and Visitors Commission and make it a place where people want to be, where people want to have conventions. There's an opportunity here to refinance the existing debt and extend it another 10 years to make the debt payments a little smaller, to really connect the stadium and make it, or the convention center, and make it a contiguous building, because there's a little garage that sits in the middle of it that we had to build around. Let's make it a good Convention and Visitors Commission and go after those big conventions that we weren't able to in previous years, because we had to deal with 8 to 10 dates that we couldn't book conventions. And it won't take 4 or 5 years, as the Stadium Commission recently said. I think we can fill it up within 1 to 2 years tops.
Fill those dates that are now open.
They're gone. They're the Los Angeles Rams. We're St. Louis. We're a city with history. We're a city with potential. Let's focus on being St. Louis and capitalizing on our assets and moving forward.
Missy, is there that kind of momentum? Because we've talked this week about the restaurants that are closing with a lot of history and a lot of name recognition and a lot of sentimental value. It's like a few more cuts after a big blow.
Yeah, and I think that St. Louis tends to mourn for a long time about what used to be, and certainly the Rams, departure was a blow. I honestly think that Shannon's closing after 30 years, I think for a lot of people is more of that's kind of a an icon in St. Louis. But also I look at that and say 30 years is a pretty good run. Number one. Number two, I think it's almost like a sign of what is changing in our city and in downtown. It really is changing. There are a lot of startups coming in. There are more people moving into downtown to live. And I think they're wanting different things than maybe we wanted before. So I actually do think there's definitely momentum in terms of investment. Buildings opening, the Arcade Apartments just opened 284 units. They're 50% occupied, and they opened in December. So we have some momentum there. Other buildings that have been vacant that are under contract, the chemical building is under contract, the Railway Exchange building is under contract. So we have some momentum. People are investing in St. Louis.
I think you told us earlier this week there was 500 new residents in the past year or so, and 7 new restaurants in the next couple of months.
Yes, and Pirano actually had a soft opening today. So that's the other thing, is that the restaurants, we still have a broad range of higher end restaurants as well as lower end, or fast food, I should say. And I think that, again, that's what people are looking for, are options and diversity. And we're seeing more and more of those options in downtown.
So, okay, Todd, and Don, jump in here at any time as well. Tell us, we're kind of talking big picture, but talk specific plans. Tell us what GRG is doing on the riverfront, where you had the one version with the stadium, and now you're going forward with the version without the stadium.
Yeah, no, well, one thing that I want to say too is that we're getting ready to do the last project of City Arch River, which is Keener Plaza, which is out there, which actually is going to be starting here in the next few weeks to about a month. So you're going to start to see activity there in Keener Plaza, which is just another investment into downtown as part of the whole project.
Was.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that's going to open up that opportunity for that, so something to come into that space and take advantage of this $20 million investment that's going to be made right there in the heart of downtown.
And there is a lot of construction going on the arch grounds that, for the most part, no one sees. I mean, there's a massive hole and new entrance to a new museum down there. There is construction, I guess I'm trying to say, that isn't getting a lot of attention right now.
And later this year, we'll be able to enjoy those arch grounds and kind of the fruits of the labor that we've all kind of dealt with over the last year in terms of construction and trying to get around, and that it's going to be a great green
And nobody
space.
sees that, and because the museum's customarily been known as the underground portion of the arch. It's now going to be exposed with a new access point, and it's going to be a state-of-the-art museum. It's going to be a new destination, both by the location and the new aesthetics and the technology that's going to be in the museum. It will be a draw.
Okay, but one thing I don't get is how we get people to, I mean, it strikes me that what we desperately need in order to make riverfront plans work is people living downtown and people moving downtown. And we have this, like every city, we have this sprawling metropolitan area. I mean, I don't understand how we're going to pull people back to living in, like, let's say you guys can develop high rises on the riverfront overlooking the Mississippi, or mixed use, or all of the great plans that, you know, that everybody came up with. How do you get people there?
I don't think you just have to focus on downtown. There are other development projects going on, not just downtown, but in the Central Corridor as well.
I think you can say the same of any part of the city.
Right.
How do you bring people in?
But well, you bring people in by focusing on the things that bring people to a city. So I think, you know, our school districts have increased tremendously over under the leadership of Dr. Kelvin Adams. We're almost at full accreditation. You can look at the development that's happening in the Central Corridor, not just downtown, but we have a new IKEA.
But at its bottom, that's an argument for jobs. We desperately need more jobs.
Right. NGA is currently on the table to bring tons of good paying jobs to the city, and then the development that'll happen in the old Pruitt-Igoe neighborhood in Old North St. Louis. So I think that, you know, those projects, should they happen, will definitely be the shot in the arm that our city desperately needs.
And Missy used a magic word a little while ago, talking about downtown and being diversity. Diversity is an attraction now to folks, as opposed to being out in the cul-de-sac. Come to downtown, where there are a variety of restaurants. There's a variety of folks. There are a variety of activities to do. So I think that's a magnet to people making individual choices. That is part of what's going to help us.
Just catch us up to date, because not everyone, the people at this table know, but not everyone knows about what's going on the North Riverfront.
Yes.
Give us the thumbnail sketch.
Sure. So we worked with the city, with the St. Louis Development Corporation and other agencies within the city to finish that plan, which finished up in the fall. The City Planning Commission, as well as Great Rivers Greenways Board, has recently approved it, so that is now all moving forward. The next step, which we just authorized this month, is we're moving forward on a park open space plan, which is a component of the riverfront from Eads Bridge up to about Biddle, that we're going to do a more detailed plan that was done that takes into account everything that was conceptually proposed in that work. So that's the next step that we're moving forward on. It should be done in about May or June of this year.
It's for 200 acres, north of the Eads Bridge, between Interstate 44 now, as it's called, up to the river, up to the Stan Span Veterans Memorial Bridge. 200 acres, now with the area where the stadium was proposed. You refer to it as Plan B, but 200 acres that now have a vision for what it can be without a stadium.
I've heard Otis, you mentioned Otis earlier, mentioned that he said that perhaps you can model what the success has been in Cortex. What does that mean in terms of how you make this North River? Because when you see the footage from the air, there's nothing there, and there has been nothing there for a very long time. To David's point, how do you get people there? How do you get industry there?
So hence there's the opportunity. It's the empty vessel that has changed, though. Part of what has changed is the impact of the City Arch River project. The investment for City Arch River, the continued movement forward with Great Rivers Greenways portion of putting infrastructure for recreation along the river. The establishment of the bridge gives us a northern definition. So we have, like you say, there's a lot of pieces missing there, but it's now a defined 200 acres, and it's next to the river. We have to remember that one of our assets is the river, and it's an asset that makes us distinctive and different. And in this part of town, the southern portion of that 200 acres is one of the rare places in town where you can walk down a hill and get to the river, really experience the river. And I think that's partly of something that makes us unique, to be an attraction both for people to live and for those types of businesses that have been finding Cortex as an option. this is another area that's an option.
Maybe another way to phrase what David was asking is this, is the goal here, where do these people come from? Let's say you have what it takes to get them there. Do they come from the suburbs, or is the goal to bring them and radically change? You said our population growth. You might say our lack of population growth. Where are these folks going to come from? Are you going to get a company that you can recruit to be down there, or a university to move there to bring students? Where did they come from?
We're in the middle of a different sort of population growth when we look at the incubators that are starting in St. Louis, T-Rex and Cortex and Biotech, and how we're training people to take those jobs that really haven't even been invented yet. And when we do that, I think we're looking at people that we haven't looked at before. I don't know if they're going to come from the suburbs and we're just going to be taking population from one section and moving it to another. I think we're going to be taking it from a whole host of places, from other cities, seeing that St. Louis is the next technology place that it could be the next Silicon Valley in the Midwest, because you have Launch Code that's right there on Del Mar. You've got tons of other industry that's coming up that's focused on teaching people how to code, and these are jobs that, again, haven't been created yet. So, you're going to be pulling people from a whole host of places, not just from the suburbs, and they're going to come from everywhere. They're going to come from the university community, because we have St. Louis University and Washington University, so they're going to come from a whole host of places.
And one of the things we forget is our own success and wise decisions of the past. And if you think back about 25 years ago, the region made a very important decision to establish Metrolink. So in a competitive marketplace, we're now a city that now, of course, we have Metrolink. It comes right through downtown. There's a key stop at Eadsbridge, where this development is occurring. A second thing we did about 15 years ago is both of these are taxes that the people have voted. The second one is being the Great Rivers Greenway District, and adding a recreational component, a bicycling component, a network of green space that people crave. So I think those are two things that we've done in the past that help prepare our city to be attractive.
I think the regional visitors are very important. So we have a lot of people that come to our convention center every year. We have a good tourism industry in St. Louis, but I think we really need the region to, not just in downtown, but to explore and own the assets that St. Louis City has to offer, and there are many. And I think that that's really critically important to the credibility and the reputation of our region of St. Louis on a national scale, for the people in the region to really own it and appreciate it and see it as something that they need to explore and make their own.
But Tashara is right. We can't just steal people from the suburbs and expect that to be sustaining, right? I mean, this is a really hard problem. Like, how do you grow a region without stealing people from other regions? I mean, it's almost impossible.
I'm thinking not so much about moving, but visiting, like, doing something besides, go to a baseball game, but also go to dinner, or go to some of the museums that we have. And at least from a visitor perspective, I think that that's an important thing, that the region, own the city and downtown as well. But I agree with you that there's not really growth if it's a zero-sum game, and that's what we've got to really focus on.
But I think what we have to take advantage of is the assets we do have, and we've got, we have an Ivy League university in this city, in this region, that's with Washington University. We have St. Louis University. We have quite a few universities throughout the whole metropolitan area. Those are a lot of times students that are coming in from other parts of the country.
And not staying.
And a lot of times not staying. So that's the thing, is how do we maybe try to encourage
I present that as
more
a
of those
positive
coming in here.
opportunity.
But sometimes they do, because I went to college on the East Coast, and a lot of my colleagues ended up staying on the East Coast after they graduated. So there's an opportunity there, again, to you bring someone here to the university and they stay. I think also the other piece that we're really not paying attention to is, all this development that's happening in downtown and in the Central Corridor, but none of it is happening north of Del Mar. And we have to make sure that, as we look at development opportunities, there's no development opportunities in North St. Louis. When we've had 160 plus TIF projects and only 3 have been in North St. Louis, there's a problem. And we have to make sure that the development opportunities are spread across the entire city, not just in downtown and the Central
Sure.
Corridor.
Lacey Clay tweeted out 3 letters more important than NFL in GA. And I'm sorry to cut you off because I want to go to our Twitter poll that we did this week. We said, we asked people, what's your favorite idea for the North Riverfront? Overwhelmingly, MLS was the favorite idea. A lot of people would like to see it. I don't know if soccer necessarily would go there. There's the talk of Union Station. Also, let's take a check out what we learned from Shine Big.
Development of the North Riverfront? Think big, think important, think education. Recall the impact creation of Forest Park has had.
That was Roger. So that was a great way he actually contributed with his voice from home. We appreciate that. Okay, so he says think big. I cut you off. If you had a think big thought.
I do have a think big thought, and I wonder if we will. I think one of the things that we have done. You guys should argue with me on this point because I'm sure it'll be controversial. But I think one of the things we've done very poorly is we have a problem with poverty here, and that is also an untapped pool of potential. I mean, that's probably our greatest wasted resource. I mean, I don't see how we don't focus more on the people who have little, because every single person that we can, educate and employ, I mean, that's got to be seen as a huge untapped resource here.
We have 30 seconds left in the show. Who'd like to tackle that?
I'm going to jump in and say one of the things that's just west of the riverfront that we're working on is a choice neighborhood application from the federal government for 2 census tracts. Many people know it as where Carr Square is, that have the highest poverty rate in the city. And this program with the federal government, we're sponsoring to do that very thing.
We'll leave it right there because the music is starting to play. Thank you all for your time and for your big ideas. Until next time, stay tuned.